Welcome to the talk shop.
I don't know what you guys are doing with your response and stuff. It just looks
It's a joke,
dead.
man. It's
Guys,
a joke.
man.
It's a big joke.
It looks dead. I was telling Bernie last time, like, I'm so disappointed. Like, I would have thought, if anybody would have done, something with this, it would have been Trudeau. But it's like he's even as bad as, some of the US guys. And I would say the US response hasn't been, it's actually been impressive, I'll be honest with you.
Yeah.
So
They're basically vaccinating Toronto's population every day.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I was
exactly.
looking at the stats, and like I think 115 million people in the US have gotten the first dose, and like 64 mil have gotten two. I'm like, that's double Canada's population. I've gotten two shots. Like, this is mad.
It's
That's
crazy,
right.
man.
Nah,
So,
well, us, we're screwed, man. We're screwed.
Hopefully something changes. Hopefully. So,
Yeah. Anyways, welcome to the very negative start of the talk shop with Bernie and Chimdi. I'm Bernie. Chimdi, how you doing?
I'm Chimdi. I'm good. How's everybody doing?
Good. And we have our wonderful guest, Chike. Welcome. We have talked about you for a long time, bro. Why don't you
Really?
Yeah. Well, ever since the episode with IJ, like people were like, "Yo, we want to hear this." She was hyping you up. We were hyping you up. So like, it's been a long time coming, man. Welcome.
Yeah, thank you. I'm honored to be here. Thanks for having me.
Nice. How you guys doing? How are you? How's IJ? How's Toronto? What treating you guys?
Pretty good.
It took me out to realize you guys had finally moved. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, it took me a while to realize we finally moved to. So what was funny was we moved in. Our move date kept shifting, all kinds of different reasons. COVID kind of played into it as well. We finally loaded up the moving truck in December, shipped everything down here to Toronto from Calgary. But the real estate market in Calgary was a bit funny at the time. So I still had to kind of stay back to try to get the house rented and get some other things sorted. Finally got that done like on the, I think, 15th or so of December. And then came down to Toronto, did my COVID test, and went to Nigeria. On the back end, our stuff was delayed arriving in Toronto. So IJ came here and was without a bed for like 2 weeks. We just bought a mattress and she slept on a mattress for like 2 weeks. Then the stuff finally showed up. So it doesn't really feel, it's just starting to feel like we really moved, to be honest.
Settle down.
Yeah.
Well, what was the trucks were stuck?
COVID. Everybody blames COVID. Everything you say, oh yeah, COVID. So, but I'm like, bro, COVID has nothing to do with you just driving 3 days.
Driving down, exactly.
Yeah, exactly. But everything got here safe and stuff. So I think that's what matters.
That's good. I'm glad you guys are settled.
Yeah, that's mad though. Cause like I knew like I just had talked about it here and there. All of a sudden, I was like, oh, these TikToks. No, Instagram Reels. This looks like Toronto.
Yeah,
I was like, did this happen? She's like, oh yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it was pretty yeah. Let me leave it like that. It was quite a journey, but we're happy to be here. I'll tell you one thing though, it doesn't feel like a big move. Probably because we're Ontario kids too. Like we went to school in Ontario. I only moved to Calgary for work at the time, so it doesn't really feel like a big move coming back here. But we're loving it. I love the energy in Toronto. The energy in Toronto is very different from Calgary.
But there's no energy right now because everyone's inside though.
So that's funny. That's what's funny. Like even at that, it's still very different from what you get in Calgary. I mean, you've been to Calgary tons of times. It's pretty mellow. It's steady state mellow for the most part. So even with all the lockdowns that people are not really obeying, I think everybody's kind of tired. I'm looking out the window this morning and I see like a herd of human beings like everywhere playing. So there's a park right from our balcony. There's a huge park like right across the street, and it's packed. People are playing soccer. People are throwing frisbees. People are doing cartwheels. I'm like, I thought there's a stay-at-home order. Like, where else?
Exactly.
So
Wow.
I don't think anybody's really obeying it. But there's energy. There's energy in the
Now
city, and I like
people
that a
are
lot.
tired. Like
Yeah,
we went the same thing. We went to a park thinking we'd be the only people in the park. Amara
yeah,
was like, "Shouldn't we stay at home?" I'm like, "Listen, it's a big park. No one else is gonna be there. Place was
yeah,
packed. Even in this
yeah,
Ajax
yeah.
here, we
Oh
just
yeah,
went
oh
back in
yeah,
the car. We're like, nah."
yeah. People are just frustrated, right? Like, so I was telling Joma, like, I think last year was the only time in my life, I have to confess, that I really started to understand what like mental health struggles really meant.
Hmm.
Like you hear all these things, right? You hear people going through these challenges, and just because it's never really hit you per se, you don't really understand how bad it can get. But last year really opened my eyes to it. So I know why it's very easy to understand why no one wants to stay at home. People are literally exhausted of
Hmm.
of everything. So it's almost like, yeah, I'd rather even get locked up and have some fun in the police station than sit in my house for another month, right? At least it's some activity,
Yeah.
and that's basically everybody's sentiment right now. So it's crazy.
Are they like jailing people and stuff for breaking COVID and stuff like that? Or is there
Well,
anything, have you heard anything like that, or any regulations like that? Like,
so we had a very interesting experience when we moved here. Our neighbor next door was a lunatic, basically, to put it mildly. Um, so like this guy would blast music at 3 a.m. His music could be like club music. You feel like you're in SIP, right?
mm-hmm,
Like club music.
mm-hmm,
And so when I told you Joma got back to Nigeria, back to Canada before I did.
mm-hmm.
So she dealt with this for 2 weeks.
Wow.
And every day before when we were talking, I was in Nigeria at the time, and she's like, "Oh yeah, I can't sleep. I can't sleep." In my mind, I'm like, "Okay, I know it's bad, but can it really be that bad, bro?" I got back here, and my first night here, I was like, "Yeah, I'm done. I can't do this." So we started the process of we got the concierge involved, got the landlords of the unit where the person was involved. It was a big show, really. We called the cops a few times, and to my utter shock, I realized that the police is basically toothless.
Hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So they asked the guy, they're like, how many we see a number of shoes here. How many people are here? He's like, whether there are 3 people or there are 300 people, you would never know because I'm not letting you into my house. In my mind, I was like, okay, it's about to go down. It's about to go down.
Seriously.
The cops are like, okay. I was like, huh?
Yeah. I mean, it's funny. It's funny when these things play out, because I think like the domicile like law doesn't allow them to just walk in unless there's like harm being inflicted inside.
Yeah.
Although you think back to college parties, and they always broke up our parties.
They broke up. Yeah.
Oh
So
yeah.
actually, now that I'm thinking
Something's
about
in
it,
adding up. Something's in adding up. Trust me.
exactly
Bro,
right.
Bro, there was weed all over the floor. There was everything. Still, at that point, I was like, okay. So we just went the legal route, and finally, he eventually got evicted. But anyway, yeah. To answer your story, to answer your question, I don't even know. I don't know how they can enforce these things. From my experience here, it was
Fair
quite
enough.
shocking. So I don't know. I don't know
Because
what
what are
they'll
they
do.
gonna do?
Yeah,
Go to the park and just start handcuffing everyone at the park?
you
Like,
know, you know, all hundred
there's
of
no way.
us. Yeah,
I guess
yeah,
I guess they can't. That's
yeah.
interesting, man.
So
But yeah, let's get right into it. Like you said, we've been waiting to have Chike on as our
yeah,
guest. But yeah, we just want to give an introduction. We've already mentioned your wife's name, Ijoma, who is our very good friend from secondary school. So just give us a little bit of background of yourself,
yeah,
and then we'll get into what you do and
yeah,
all that kind of
yeah,
fun stuff. So
yeah. So I'm Chike. I'm an engineer and economist by education, actually. I studied mechanical engineering and economics in my undergrad, segued into the oil and gas industry, worked for Exxon for a number of years, and started with 2 partners our own business about 3 years ago. So we're in the commodities industry. We trade energy, metals, and agricultural commodities around the world. Really early days for us and our business. So looking to see all the awesome opportunities that we can take advantage of as we grow it over the next 5 to 10 years. That's I think in summary, that's a story about me.
Let me dive in with the question first off,
Yeah,
because
yeah.
I'm very good at pretending I know what people say. I'm
Okay,
very
okay,
good at
okay,
that. But now that we
okay.
have a podcast and people want to learn stuff, I'm going to ask the question: what does
Yeah.
energy commodities really actually mean?
Yeah.
So a commodity is basically feedstock that gets refined into finished product. There are three main verticals for commodities. So if you think of the energy industry, you think of say crude oil that gets then refined into diesel, petrol, marine fuel, all that jazz. Agricultural commodities, cash crops, for example,
Hmm.
or crops in general, then
Hmm.
then go through their own refinement journey into finished product. So shea nuts will get refined into shea butter and some other derivatives. Cocoa, raw cocoa beans will get refined into finished products that you can drink and put into your whatever, your food, your milkshakes, blah blah blah. And then metals, so ores, iron ore, that gets refined into iron bars, for example, that gets
Hmm.
channeled into industry. So commodities are basically raw feedstock that can
Hmm.
go through a refinement product process to produce finished goods. So what we do, we step in the middle as sort of a middleman. If you want to liken it to something that most people would understand, think of an Amazon. Amazon is actually a middleman,
Hmm.
right? Yeah, once in a while they try and compete with their customers, but for the most part, they're a middleman. They step in the middle and facilitate the process to get products, in our case now, commodities, channeled from where they produce the surplus to where there's a deficit and there is a demand for them. So we come in and bridge that gap. That's what we do.
So how did two young guys, because well, three of you, right?
We're
You
three,
just
yeah, we're
said.
three, yeah,
So three of you, because I
yeah,
know, like, Jimmy and I are young gentlemen, contrary to popular belief. So we are all around the same age here. How
yeah,
did three?
yeah,
Because think about it, right? You just said you were
yeah,
talking about trading of commodities. These are the raw ores and things like that, right?
yeah,
This
yeah,
around the world, this seems incredibly complex, and I know you've been doing this for
Exactly.
a couple of years.
yeah.
How the hell do you even get started?
Into that.
Yeah, that's just my mind is blown. Explain that to
Yeah,
me.
it's not.
Before
Go
you answer,
ahead. Go ahead.
Chike,
Yeah, yeah,
sometimes I think about it. I'm like, okay, so first of all, you have to have the balls to become an entrepreneur and just step out of whatever.
yeah,
One,
yeah, yeah,
two, because of my line of work and stuff, I know funding wise, to me that's the biggest thing. To me, in terms of going out on business on my own and stuff like that, is funding. Where
uh-huh.
am I gonna get the seed money to do these things that I
Yeah,
have a thought about?
yeah,
How
yeah,
sustainable is that? Can I survive on that? Can I do what I
yeah,
need to do with that also? So those are scary things to me. But yeah,
yeah.
go ahead.
No, I like your question because I tell a lot of my friends have also sort of transitioned into entrepreneurship in the past. Let me see now, 5 years, 4 5 years. Some of them, the last people that you'd even think, right? I'm not one of those people that advocates entrepreneurship as the only way of life. That's actually garbage. We all have different callings, but if it's placed on your heart to try to take some risk to build your own venture, I always encourage that you start it in some kind of capacity. You don't have to jump in cold turkey like some of us do. You can start it on the side, but eventually you would have to channel a proportionately larger amount of your energy to really get it to take off the way you want it to. It's just a natural journey, right?
Mm.
For us, the journey was very interesting. So I was working for Exxon at the time. I was probably about 2 years in, 2 3 years in, and started to realize that there were, while I was a young kid, I got into the industry at the perfect time. To be honest, this was 2010 thereabouts. The industry was just starting to pick up again after the '08 financial crisis. So there was tons of money going into the industry at this time. We had guys, some of us fresh out of university, 1 year out of university, managing project portfolios. So I was in projects. My background is in project management.
Mm.
So some of us were managing project portfolios, $60 million, $100 million. Right? You're fresh out of school. Okay, it was literally a sink or swim environment. But what it did was it forced you to learn very quickly. So, in as much as I was having a lot of fun and a lot of experience there, I realized there was a lot of my, if you say, natural passions and even skill sets really that I wasn't getting to use on the job.
Mm.
My partner as well was going through the same journey. He worked for GE at the time, same thing. So we started to scout for different types of projects. So, funny enough, this isn't actually our first business. Our first business was a power consulting business. So we set up like an M&A advisory company then Nigeria was selling off tons of power assets. I'm sure you guys remember. Now we set up an M&A advisory business just to kind of get in on that action, deploy some of our skill sets to help asset buyers effectively purchase assets at good prices and all that kind of stuff. It was a very challenging time to be in that industry, but we ended up doing some cool stuff. We helped Shell sell one of their power plants to an indigenous Nigerian oil company. And that just opened our eyes to what entrepreneurship could look like. My dining table, then Bernie, you've been to the house. So the dining table in the house was our workstation for 3 weeks or so. After work, 4:30, we'll get on the train, dash home to work on this thing into the night. And we did that for about 2-3 weeks. Eventually we got paid and we're like, wow, this is crazy. Like we basically earned a third of our annual salary for 2 weeks of work. Right?
Wow.
Okay, so I wasn't sure if you came. So anyway, so that just opened our eyes. That just opened our eyes to it, and we decided we'll continue to look for more opportunities. As far as your question on the industry itself, it's actually not, maybe I'm a bit biased because I come from the industry, but it's actually not as complicated as it sounds to most of the world. I think regardless of whatever business that you're in, you're primarily in the risk management business. So for our industry or for our business, for example, that's basically what we do. We are the warehousers and managers of risk. So let me bring it to a very fundamental example of a farmer who is fantastic at growing crops, but horrible at actually selling his crops. There's so much risk that he has to deal with when he's dealing with a potential buyer, a counterparty, in this transaction. Inherent counterparty risk. Will I get paid? Will I get paid the price we agreed on? Am I going to get shafted by signing some garbage contract that is skewed against me, not in my favor? All those types of things. A trading company or a trader then steps in and literally takes on that risk for the producer, right? And sets up the proper structure of the transaction so that you're insulating the producer from that risk, and you are getting paid for that value that you're adding to essentially iron out the wrinkles in between the process. So that's basically what it is.
So how do you, because whether it's the initial M&A business, for example, or even this commodities training, like you live in Canada, right?
Yes,
and I know you have, very still strong connections back home, and you go back quite a lot, actually. I know all that. But still, right? If we're talking about, say, iron ore or some stuff like that, that's is produced in fairly specific areas of the country, in Nigeria specifically. There are people that you need to either be connected to or businesses on ground that you need to have relationships with. As probably, I think you were 22, 23, something like that. Like, how do you even begin? Because what I'm getting at is, like, I don't have those connections, but I'm even thinking regardless, right? How do you even first decide, okay, well, I know you decide there's an opportunity here. That's fine. That's part one. Well, part two is, how do you even figure it out to get to the point where you can start building those relationships with the local producers? Because that's crazy to me. I'm curious.
So it's like I said, it's not as complicated as it usually sounds when you read it on paper. It's just about getting up and doing it, to be honest. And it is very difficult, especially in the beginning. I'll give you like real world examples just so that we can drive the point home. Myself and my partner, we used to get on the plane sometimes and spend just 4 days in Nigeria, all the way from Canada. So at Exxon, then we used to have one Friday off in a month, right? So we'll get on a plane, for example, on like a Wednesday. I'll take 1 day off, say, on Thursday. We'll get to Nigeria on maybe Thursday night or Friday, whenever that is. Do meetings all through the weekend. Head back to Canada on Monday, so that I can show up at work on Tuesday. Take advantage of that gaining time when you're coming back this way, right? We did that so many times. We will rotate trips. So then he was on a rotation as well. So whenever he has a chance to pass by Nigeria, it was much easier. For example, if he was traveling from Europe back to Canada, we would pass by Nigeria, spend some days in Nigeria, build networks, go to meetings, establish relationships. We were doing this even when we had full-time jobs. Do you understand? So you have to just put in that time. There's really no way to kind of skip that process. It's just
This is
about putting in the
$2,000
work.
flights every
Yeah, yeah,
other. Like, this is
yeah.
mad.
Yeah. So we spent. Are you kidding me? We were working full time. We tallied it one time, and we're like, dude, we've spent $20,000 this year on investing in ourselves.
Yourselves, yeah.
Right,
Yeah.
investing in ourselves. Basically, we're going for all kinds of trainings, going for all kinds of conferences, and it's so funny. Most of the people that we're dealing with now in different capacities, either as mentors, either as partners, either as customers, we met them in 2013 when we were just young kids trying to make a way. Not that we were hungry; we had really well-paying jobs, right? But we knew that we sort of sat in the future that, okay, this is really what we want to do for the rest of our lives. We might as well just start now. We also got very inspired by tons of stories. I believe in mentorship and the power that it has, but I think a lot of people don't truly appreciate that you can also have mentors from afar. All your mentors don't have to be guys that you can pick up the phone and call. We got very inspired by stories from people like Wale Tinubu and the Owando story, Mofe Boyo. These guys were all young guys our age at the time as well. Really going through the same journey we were going on as well.
And did you build relationships with them? Like,
no,
from
not
a
these guys,
distance?
not this exact. No, so what I mean is mentors from afar. You consume all their material. You don't even
Okay,
have to know them.
I got you.
Right? You don't even have to know them. We got inspired by so many of these stories. So, in as much as it sounds like it's a big deal, we were already sensitized at the time that no, bro, this is nothing. Right? Like, this is what many people have done. Right? These kinds of sacrifices and these kinds of things. What many people we didn't even see it as a sacrifice. Funny enough, it was like a labor of love. We're very excited to do it. Maybe it's the naivety from being young or whatever, but we never saw it as a sacrifice. It was never a big deal.
I think honestly, once you had the idea, you put it into motion and you saw fruits, like not necessarily immediately, but what you said you wanted to do, you saw that it was viable from your first venture into it. It spurs anyone on like that. That's the honest truth. Like until you know that the thing kind of can't work, logistically, and obviously, like you said, you had the connection, you had the idea, you knew what you had to kind of do, and you put it into place, and you just did it, and then from there it grew. I think that first step is always like, just go for it. That to me, again, I've said this before, and Bernie knows this as well. To me, is usually that fear of taking that first step is like, am I doing the right thing? Even now, maybe when we turn off the business I'm trying to do, is like I'm still like every time I want to do the next step, I'm like, do I really want to do this? Is it gonna work? But you never know until now that I've done a few things that have taken me past my first thoughts. I'm feeling okay, fine, just go for it now. Just put everything you can do. So I definitely understand that.
I can go in so many. I can talk about this for days, to be honest, because I think even the way life is structured is sort of structured to disincentivize people from taking risks at certain times in their lives. When all they should be doing is actually taking risks. So think about it. We were 20-something-year-old guys. What's truly the worst that could have happened?
For us, nothing. If you really think about it, like we could have lost money. Like, so what?
Yeah, but that's
money,
it, right?
That's
But
it.
what's really the worst that could have happened? In 2016, for example, I moved back to Nigeria because that was sort of so I had a mentor who he owns a shipping company in Nigeria. So he had been my mentor for years and very close to the journey, really. Every Christmas when I go home, I'm gonna have dinner. You ask me, okay, so what's up now? How's work? How's everything? What are your plans? I'm like, yeah, work is great, but I still want to kind of do this our thing, right? I told him for 3 years straight. In 2015, December of 2015, when I spoke to him, he was like, look, dude, I've heard this story for 3 years running now.
3 years.
At some point, I'm not pressuring into anything. At some point, you're just going to have to take the chance, right? And it just time the alignment was perfect. I had in my projects group at work back then, there was the oil markets had tanked. Okay, so now the entire industry was just looking for one thing and one thing only: efficiency gains. right? They wanted to just squeeze out an extra dollar from every single thing. We had at the time this alliance with an EPC company where a lot of their engineers were warehoused in our offices, right? Working with us as our discipline engineers, right? Yet now all markets are crashed. There's no work. So what do these guys do, right? Only two options, obviously. Either you keep them and just keep incurring that overhead, or you lay them off. So in my asset group was out west in Canada, in northeast of Calgary. We had an alliance with these guys where they were working on these projects with us. But in other asset locations, even in the east here, where the refinery was and all this stuff, guys in the refinery were bidding out engineering contracts to other engineering companies. Meanwhile, you have this huge pool of engineers in Calgary that could do this work for you. So my manager at the time basically told me, okay, Chike, you always talk about business, you like business. Go and take this on and figure out how we can extract some value out of this. And I was in 5+ years, I with handling other complex projects. This was the first time I truly came alive. I literally took it and turned it into a business within the business, right? Ran it for about 6 months to 6 to 8 months actually. At the end of it, everybody in the group, all the different asset groups all across Canada for the company were so excited. I did an annual investors presentation. Like I was the CEO of the company and I was presenting to my shareholders, right? After I did that, one manager came and talked to me. He's like, did you study anything like this in school? I was like, no, this is just a passion of mine. And he's like, honestly, I really don't think you should be here. Yeah, I really don't think you should be here. I went and spoke to my manager. My manager at the time was like, yeah, if this was a much smaller company, by Monday morning next week, would have sent you to a business development team. Like you actually have no business being in the projects team, right? You should be in commercial. But we're a big company, so we're going to drag our feet a bit. I can tell that. It just so worked out that this was right before I went on my trip to Nigeria in December. And my mentor was telling me the same thing. The stars just aligned. And I was like, you know what? I'm out of here next year. So I came back, told my partner I'm leaving by June. Sold my car, rented my house, moved to Nigeria and worked with him for a year and a half. Another risk again, right? But what's the worst that could have happened?
Yeah.
If I get tired, I come back and look for another job or something.
Another job when
right?
you find it. Exactly.
You
So I always
said something
encourage
that
people.
I found interesting when you said you told him it was your passion. So that brings up another question. Have you some people, like when they're younger, I don't know, they do some interesting things and people can be like, this one can be an entrepreneur, like when you're 10 or whatever. Have you always been that type of kid? And the second question was, did your parents always support your initiatives? Because Chimney and I've had this discussion in the past. Igbo parents specifically, I know Igbo people are generally deemed the entrepreneurial ones in the country, but when you're out and abroad and you're in school, Igbo parents become risk averse. You know what I mean? They're like, you get a nice job, you get married, deal with it. Why would you mess this up when you have a nice job? How did your parents react to your decisions?
Yeah, so I'm really enjoying this. I like these questions you guys are asking. It's extremely pertinent. I'll take the first one first. I think I always had an eye for numbers and for business, but I didn't really get to explore it until early in my childhood days when Nigeria used to go to all these stupid fuel scarcity episodes, right? And when I'm the first kid and the first son. So as with every Igbo household, you start to take on certain responsibilities at some point. So at some point, it was my job to go and buy diesel with the driver. I felt like a big boy. I felt like I was on top of the world. I was probably like 8 years old at the time. But so we'll go to the gas station. And I'll never forget when I sat there in line and I was observing all these, touts, to not disparage them a bit, but street guys. And I was watching this structure that they had set up where they collude with the gas station attendants and they bring fuel from them. They cut the line, go there, get the fuel, then come to sell to everybody else. So I was like, oh, wow, this is pretty cool. If I give you money, can you bring it for me? He's like, yeah, sure. So we go to a parkade that's like across the street from the gas station and wait for him there. There are tons of other guys, their cars there too. They're tired of waiting in line. They want the same arrangement. And basically, I started fronting the guy money to buy the fuel, and we will sell it to the people waiting next to us, so they don't have to wait in line, and then they'll go back. Right? We did run this racket for a day, and I was like, I made like 20,000 naira. This was in 1990.
Wow.
6 or so. I can't even remember what the exchange rate was. I just remember that it was so much money that I went and bought brand new pair of Adidas boots. And I was on the school team at the time. I went and bought brand new set of Adidas boots and a brand new Adidas soccer ball, and I hadn't felt better in my life. I gave my driver. So that was the first taste for me, I guess, like just actually taking money and flipping it and extracting value out of it, essentially.
Yeah.
We do all the other schemes that every other child does, sell 1 or 2 games in your house, that kind of thing, buy games, sell it for profit in school, that kind of shit. But it wasn't until I got into industry that I got a chance to actually exercise it again on a much bigger scale, so to speak. Yeah. But I've always had an eye for numbers, I think. So the second question about parents. So this was very interesting. I'd like to sit here and tell you, I got all the support and whatever. It's a nice story, but it actually won't be true. The thing you said about evil parents is very interesting, because it was only going through the journey that I realized the underpinnings of what motivates that sort of behavior. We are very proud people, right? Your parents actually. You are a source. You are cannon fodder for your parents' bragging rights outside.
True.
Right. So I think it extends to the whole country, really. But Igbo people in particular, your parents always want to brag about what you're doing, and it's nicer when they have recognizable brand names to attach to what you're doing. So think about this. What sounds better? Oh, Chimdi is running his own company now, or Chimdi had just been posted on expert assignment with Shell to Saudi Arabia. Right? That doesn't matter that Chimdi's company is doing $10 million a year. It doesn't really matter. It's okay. Oh wow, really? Shell? Oh wow, that's awesome. So, but I think our generation is going to be the first ones to sort of break away from this mold, right? You're seeing more and more young people going off the beaten path and really venturing into their own things. And I think eventually parents will start to come around. In my case, it wasn't so easy. In fact, my parents thought someone had jazzed me. Let me put it bluntly. Yeah. Because it didn't really make any sense on paper. Why would you be taking this sort of risk when you have everything really set up for you so well, right? But obviously, then eventually they start becoming proud of you much later on. So my encouragement to young people is don't look for, if you're really looking for, it sucks to say, but if you're really looking for encouragement from external parties, you will most likely stay disappointed for a very long time. Right? You'll be very disappointed for a very, very long time. It's much nicer, I think, when the motivation comes from within, because it's inextinguishable. Right? It's inextinguishable. It's not tied to any externalities. So you'll really be able to run on your own fuel until the results start to show. And then you can win some more cheerleaders that will sort of, praise you along the way. But you have to be very comfortable with being your own cheerleader, your only cheerleader from the beginning. Yeah.
That's very interesting. I mean, everything you said is typical from what we know,
Yeah.
But yeah, once even relates to like other industries, like even music and stuff. There's no way any Igbo parents gonna support you in the beginning, singing or rapping or doing anything. Obviously, once it shows viability, once they understand what you're doing, once it shows that it makes sense, then they come on board. So I mean, it makes sense. It makes sense. But I mean, yeah.
It's very interesting. It's very interesting because it's always nice when you can take a step back and really analyze it from a very unbiased point of view. Let's be honest. Like for parents growing up, what options did they really have for career paths when they finished school? It was either you're in the oil and gas industry, or your lawyer, your doctor, all that jazz. It was much later on. Funny enough, it was much later on that banking even became a respectable profession. In the early days, it wasn't. You're a banker, you're a pauper, right?
Yeah.
It was much later with the so-called newer generation banks. It started to become a thing. So now you're seeing technology becoming a very strong industry segment, right? And parents, I know there are parents, we always want to look at them like Superman and Superwoman, but they have their limitations too. A lot of it is with the times, a lot of it is no matter how exposed they are, they're just not exposed to certain things, right? So I think, I don't know, I'm very bullish on our generation, as you can tell. I think we're really going to be the ones to turn the tide on a number of other things.
I think you're right. I think you're right because our parents' generation, as I said, we're all the same age. There's this survival mentality that they had coming out of. Many of them were born in and around the Civil War.
Exactly.
And we all know what happened with bank accounts being frozen back then. And I think I don't remember how much money they put in their bank accounts. Everyone had to start from scratch, basically. No matter how rich you were, our people essentially had to start from scratch. So what are you going to do? You're going to try and latch onto the industries that are the most stable, right? And that offer the highest income. And you obviously, whether indirectly or intentionally or not, are going to put that pressure on your child, because what else do you know but survival? It's all you've known your whole life. All this other stuff that's risky. You're talking about risk management. It's like, I worked so hard to get here so that you don't have to risk anything. And now, Chike, you are going to go and do a risk? It's like, in their mind, it's like, what are you doing?
What's crazy is this thing you said is so important, because actually my dad was an Exxon guy as well. So he was an accountant at first. He started his career at Deloitte and then segued into Exxon. He got put, so he segued into Exxon and spent the rest of his career in Exxon. So I remember when I used to complain about a lot of things then, and he's like, "Oh, don't worry, I understand. I went through it too. We went through it too." And he was telling me that to be a comforting father, right? But I was freaking terrified. I was like, wait. You went through what I'm going through in 2014 in 1990 something. How on earth am I supposed to go through this for another 30 something years, right? It means nothing's changing. So it's again, it's not for everybody, but honestly, I feel like if it's been placed on your heart to do, you just have to give it a shot. I don't want to. I would rather regret all the things I did, if I ever get to that, than regret all the things I never tried. I don't know that I can live with myself for that one, right? So it's end of the day, judgment day is one by one. Like, you're not going to stand with your father, so every man for himself. So you better be happy with the life that you chose. And that's really how I see it. That's really how I see it.
Just a quick question before we move on to probably some other stuff. Logistically, I mean, I know for you guys, your overhead generally was your travel and stuff like that. Are you required to, and maybe just as me trying to understand further the business, are you required to put in any money of your own for the actual business apart from travel, or do you actually have to front up? Like, do you have to buy anything? Are you just, like you said, middlemaning, the whole thing?
Mostly middlemaning. But what's interesting is in the beginning, to actually start off the business, we put in some founder equity, but we also raised equity from investors. Right. So we did 2 funding rounds actually and raised money from investors. So that helped quite a bit. But as far as transactions, there are different ways you can facilitate transactions. It gets risked, or rather, let's use interest rates as the measure of risk, right? So there's certain ways of financing transactions that become cheaper for you as the party requiring financing. In my opinion, what I always advise people to do, especially when you're just starting off, is obviously to go with the cheapest source of financing, which in my opinion is supplier credit, right? And this is where we talked about risk in the beginning. This is where you now, as a company, need to truly understand the different types of risks that are present in your space, in your industry, or even in just simple transactions, and make it a point of call that, okay, we want to become the best in class at managing these risks, because that way you start to get much cheaper financing. So I love supplier credit because you literally don't have to put up any money up front. So let's walk through a real world scenario so that you get to understand what I'm saying.
Exactly.
Say you have a buyer in Asia that wants to buy 4,000 tons of cashews. This is actually a transaction we did, so I'm leading on it. Let's say you have a buyer in Asia that wants to buy 4,000 or 1,000 tons of cashews. And you have partnerships with a farm in Nigeria that produces a bunch of cash crops, right? You can either step in, go, raise financing like trade financing from a bank, right? A trade line from a bank, at whatever the interest rate will be, buy the product from your Nigerian producer, ship it all the way to Vietnam, and depending on the terms of your agreement, you can either get paid when it leaves the port in Nigeria, or it has to get paid only when it arrives in Asia. But essentially, you are raising financing from a bank and paying a certain interest rate on top of that, right? Or you could actually, with your partnership with the farm, get the product on a net 30 or net 60-day payment term, arrange all the logistics, get it shipped over, get paid, pay the producer their clip, and take your profit on top of it. Which one's cheaper?
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. So we use that a lot in the beginning. And I always encourage, we raised all kinds of we raised trade lines here in Canada at some point, but it is still the cheapest way to finance a transaction. And what helps you a lot in this case is reputation. So one of the biggest risks that people don't talk about, that blows my mind, is reputational risk. People talk about credit risk, people talk about currency risk, people talk about counterparty risk. People don't talk about reputational risk. It's a big deal. It's a really big deal,
because it sounds like it's a soft thing, but like it's a
it's a really, really big deal. So, and once you continue to manage that, not saying things don't go wrong, things go wrong. Unfortunately, it's business, right? But the more you continue to put in structures in place for your organization, your company, to manage reputational risk head on, I think it has potential to have long paying dividends for you over the life of your company, however many years it will be. You're seeing that with many people, many companies as well.
See, that's the thing that amazes me. And thank you for walking through exactly the line, kind of how, because that was my next question. If you didn't do that, I was going to ask you.
No, I love examples. I love examples.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I'm curious like that, and but like, so in this case, right, where it blows my mind, and you don't have to give us this gets too deeper, and this may be a conversation for off air or whatever, but like, you first of all having to find that buyer. Obviously, you have your relationships with the cash crop producer, the metal oil producer, whatever else, the raw material producer. So you have that. So you have to source that side. You have to now figure out where your buyers are and go to them. And then, your first cold call with any bank or any person, securing that deal that, okay, give us this amount of funding. We're going to do this and this. You have to draw a business plan. I'm sure you guys have to do that to certain places to make sure you understand what's going on. All the different hats you're having to deal with one side, deal with this other side, deal with your own internal things. You get your house straight in different places. Initially that's where all the work is. I'm sure. And then once everything starts to be flowing, once you have your set buyers and your set producers, you can get into a flow. But like that's the amazing part to me, is like that sourcing. How did you? Because you were in oil and gas, so like I can understand maybe you have through that connections from metals, and then for the oil products also. But like for cash crops, like how do you, the Vietnam buyer, like how the hell does that even come about?
Newsflash, we met them at a conference.
Okay.
So you see what I mean. You see what I mean. That's why I said it's not as complicated as it sounds on paper. It's really about doing the work.
Yeah.
And this thing you said about like building relationships on both ends, right? Most people would think, oh yeah, once you do the first one, then term, just like how term contracts work, it's nice because you just continue to repeat it according to a certain frequency. But there's a reason why many trading houses still have very large origination teams. You have to continue sourcing.
Yeah,
It's the same with every business, right?
Yeah.
It's the same with every single business on earth. You have to continue. It doesn't end. So it links back to the why. Like when people need to really be clear on why are you doing this. It's actually a lot of work. Like when I see how entrepreneurship gets glamorized these days, I kind of understand it because it's nice to sell magazines, but it's very unfortunate because they're not actually letting people know the unsexy side of it. It's a shit ton of work, right? So you really have to be clear on, okay, why am I actually doing this? You're not doing it for your good health. You're not. I show you. There are also other ways to earn money, but it truly has to be connected to some kind of purpose that is much larger than yourself. For me, for example, I knew I could always make money. At 21, I was earning 6 figures a year. So it wasn't really about money. I had made money. I started making money at a very, very early age, right? So, but it was something I needed to build something much bigger than what I was doing at the time, much bigger than me even, because I truly did believe that I had the capacity to do it, right? I wanted to be one of those captains of industry that will help add value to all the economies that I'm operating in. So it's a much loftier ambition.
So
right?
that was what I was going to say. Like the aim is to get to Dangote levels. The person I think about when you think about this kind of thing is him, because his arm is in too many places. The way I keep thinking about how did he start, and he definitely started how you started. Doing things like this. That's what I envision. But man, it's kudos to you, man.
But the thing is, the real question to me is, you're a busy guy. You're running your own business. How do you manage to get the time to help IG with all these reels and photos and stuff? Because I've seen pictures of you on the ground taking the picture like this, doing all sorts of things. Like, well, you know what? Firstly, it's good that you support her initiatives. I think that's very important. But is it true that you are behind the creative mind behind those things? That's the rumor I heard on the street, though, that you are the creative mind behind all these things going on.
I would take credit wherever it's given to me. But yeah, so I have to confess, in the beginning, I'm not really a picture person, funny enough. Like, so in the beginning it was a struggle. Like I didn't even understand, okay, bend it down this way or lean this way, you get better angles. I'm like, what do you mean angles? Take the picture, right? Like, but then it's a learning process, and then eventually you sort of get good at it. I think for me, what I like about it is it's back to what we're talking about, right? Just getting started, right? It was all an idea in the beginning. But I also know the vanity that rules in the social media space, and how that can be very destructive for people in general. Just kind of hollows you out, right? So my only condition to her was, this is going to be a business. I'm not here. We're not going to be taking pictures for picture's sake. We're building something with this, right? That was clearly her vision too. That's what she wanted to do. So there was that alignment there, right? It's like any other partnership. I don't actually look at marriage. I think men are very similar in this regard. I don't look at marriage with a purely romantic lens. To me, it's simply a partnership, right? So all the internal plumbings and mechanics that have to be in place to make a partnership work. A typical business partnership, you and Bernie Chimby, for example, to make this partnership for your podcast work, the same thing that you have to apply to a marriage. So we kind of checked all those out, and okay, let's do it. And I'm always very happy to lend my support.
So let me ask you a question about that, because I agree with you. There are lots of people that won't be as point blank as that, right? But I agree with you. Did it as you guys were getting to know each other, was that
Mhm.
something that just right off the bat you were like, listen, we're like, this is how it should go, and she's like, yeah, or she like, this is too busy, like what's happening, like was you know what I mean, was there that sort of weirdness, like why is he
Yeah.
business like this, or
Pushback.
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, so how do I put this? You have to be, as a man, I guess, you have to be comfortable with being misunderstood, right? But I think the truth is always the right compass. Like it's always properly calibrated. Eventually, you circle back to that. So
Mhm.
even when there were disagreements about okay direction or things, eventually we really just flesh things out. Let's take the emotion out of it. Let's take the biases out of it. Let's evaluate it on its own merits, right? Not saying that one person is always right, but for the most part, I just like to have non-emotional discussions, and
Mhm.
for the most part, that's what we do here. So we don't have, even if they're the natural arguments that would happen when two or more people are debating issues. Eventually, we don't have a problem getting to a consensus. We don't have a problem getting to the consensus at all. So that's our dynamic here, I guess. Yeah.
That's a good way to see it. I mean, not again, like Bernie said, not everyone is gonna say that. Not every woman sees it that way.
Yeah.
Not every woman can admit that it is that way and then behave accordingly. The
Yeah.
hardest thing to do is sometimes to get your spouse to see things from a different lens and acknowledge it.
Yeah.
That's one
Yeah.
thing that people struggle with is, okay, I'm trying to understand where you're coming from, but make sure you're understanding where I'm coming from too, so you
Yeah.
can understand, the logic behind it. For the most part, we guys think logically. For the most part, main thing. So asking a lady to think that way is for them to hopefully see the logic in what you're saying. I understand. If it still doesn't make any sense, then cool. Then we
Yeah.
find the middle ground. But
Yeah.
that's usually the hardest thing to get people to understand, or a woman to understand. But if you get that to that point where you guys understand the dynamic between you guys, then usually
Yeah.
it's it's perfect. So yeah,
Yeah.
that makes a lot of sense.
I think just to drill deeper into what you just said, I think the world is in a very confused state right now because we are overcomplicating really simple, in my opinion anyway, really simple dynamics, right?
Mhm.
Now, the raging conversation now is about feminism, right?
Mhm.
But I keep asking all the females that talk to me about it, what do you define as what's feminism? Who is a feminist? Because if feminism means anti-femininity, then I don't think that's even in the best interest of women in the long run,
Mhm.
right? A man is a man and a woman is a woman. We bring a lot of
Different.
awesome things to the mix,
Yeah.
Mhm.
but you as a man should not want to become a woman, and vice versa. I don't think it's in the interest of any union for a woman to become anti-feminine,
I th- I
right?
th- I think
You know what I
that
mean?
I think to your point, right?
So that's
Like
that's how
like
I
you're
see it.
saying, we complicate things, and I think
Yeah.
even in opposition to things, we complicate things. I think we as a society, there's simple conversations can't be had, because even in that feminism thing, like the traditional definition of feminism is someone who believes in the equality of the sexes,
Mm.
right? That's it. That's actually all it is.
Mm-hmm,
There's nothing else to what feminism is supposed to be, especially if you go to
mm-hmm.
university and study it. And I've had a girlfriend, I sat in some women's
Yeah. Women's
whatever
studies.
courses. That's all it
Yeah.
is.
Yeah.
So when we start deviating from that, because when someone says, "Are you feminist?" I go, "Yeah, because I'm a feminist, because this is the definition of this. There's
Mm.
nothing else." So when people start adding this and this
Yeah.
and this
Yeah.
to the
Yeah. Yeah.
conversation, it's like you're
Yeah.
actually not helping your cause, and I'm not helping my cause,
Yeah.
because
Yeah. Yeah.
we've gotten away from what was supposed to be a simple definition. And by the way, it can be any ism
Mm-hmm,
in the word
mm-hmm,
in the
mm-hmm,
world. We start
mm-hmm.
adding stuff to the pot, and then we can no longer have a straight conversation about that thing, whether it be even racism.
Yeah.
We
Exactly.
complicate that. We complicate that seriously.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
That
no, I
makes
see
a
your
lot of
point.
sense. That makes a lot of sense. Yeah, but I mean, it's interesting that that's that's the way things work for you guys, and it makes sense. The dynamic doesn't have to be the same for everyone, but in generally, thinking that way and acting logically and going through issues logically is the best path in most cases, anyway. So, yeah.
let's just to end because we got a little bit of time. Chike, were you a DMX fan growing up?
Yo, this week has been heavy for me, man.
Yeah.
This week has been so we were driving on Lakeshore yesterday with so IJ and Ifoma as well, IJ's sister, for those that don't know. And we were just blasting DMX music the whole way. And I was like, wow. Like what Burna Boy said, DMX actually was the soundtrack of our lives.
Yep. Yep. A lot.
DMX,
like you don't realize it.
Yeah.
You don't realize it. Like honestly, today I went to San Antonio yesterday. I'm in Houston currently. So we drove back today, and I played through the whole ride his catalog. Honestly, his catalog is 3.5 hours long. Like just to select songs, like just to show you how big his range is. And then some of the songs I forgot, like I forgot, but like they're so. And I realized something listening because obviously as you get older, you become more of a lyrical listener. Some people are that way from the beginning, but me, I noticed that I try to listen more to what people are saying now than I ever did. I'm like, wow, this guy was really saying things that were like I didn't get back then, but you understand the deepness of it when you understand his situation and what happened to him. Almost every song has something to reflect his life. It's like it's incredible, man. Like honestly, this is very, 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 very underrated. Appreciated individual.
DMX's penmanship was next to none. Like I mean, you listen to songs like so one of my favorite DMX songs was what type of games are being played, how's it going down, song to the song. Do you remember that song?
Yeah.
I know. I was watching the video yesterday and I was like, wow, like this guy was actually the way he changed hip hop in so many ways. I think prior to DMX, I mean, Def Jam was dying. First off, he literally gave Def Jam like CPR. Okay, that's a big deal in of itself. But he actually brought more raw energy to hip hop. Like it was now cool not to just be the guy that was pop bottles in the club, but to be the guy with the bikes. He brought bike culture into hip hop. He brought. I mean, he brought so many gritty things into hip hop that just gave it some injection of raw energy. I think he was the sort of John the Baptist to a Jay-Z, for example. Like DMX made it possible for us to have a Jay-Z in the way we had Jay-Z. So
I think that's a good way to think about it. I think that, and it may sound controversial to people, but I mean, to me, DMX reminds me of Tupac in the context of if you want to go lyrical technique, he's not top 5. I mean, like, the Nas, Eminems, those guys that can do and then they can do all sorts of different flows like Biggie. He wasn't that guy, but he was the pain and the emotion, and he made you feel something for things that you had no business feeling. Like I should feel sad about your ghetto experience. I didn't live in the ghetto, but I did. Right? You know what I mean? I listened to Who We Be, which is my favorite DMX song. He just goes the pain, da 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 da. He's not actually doing anything spectacular lyrically, but I felt it in my soul. And Tupac was a bit like that, but to me, DMX is over Tupac, just for me because of the era we grew up in and all that. And also, I felt for his story. He was always in jail with cops, with drugs, but it never felt like some guys who were just assholes. It felt like this guy was just troubled, not in full control, and was trying to break free.
He was going through struggle, and he wasn't ashamed of putting it on wax. Like he wasn't ashamed of telling you that he was going through struggle. Right. So it's a big loss. I saw something, I don't know how true it is actually, that Jay-Z and Beyonce bought his catalog and going to give it to his kids or something like that. For about $10 million. I saw it like a bunch of times yesterday.
I don't know, but that'd be amazing.
That's pretty awesome. I think it's important that his legacy, and legacy not just meaning his image, but also his worth, like his life's work, is actually being custodied with the people that will care to protect it.
Yeah,
right. I think that's extremely important. So if that's true, I'm very, very happy to.
I'm happy he got that verses with Snoop as well, because that was the last time we really saw him. And these verses have been great for nostalgia and everything, right? And remember he was just going like he was trying to like freestyle, and he just looked so happy. He just looked so happy, you know.
It's quite amazing. It's quite amazing. But he rests in peace, man. It's a big loss.
Rest in peace. Yeah, and did you see his Drink Champs interview also? I watched part of it, not everything.
I haven't seen that one. No.
Yeah, but it was like you saw he was, and he wasn't. I don't think he was even drinking during that, but you know, throughout his time, you could always tell something was off. Obviously, because of the drugs and whatever had done damage to him over time. His speech, I feel like that's why his speech was the way it was.
Yeah, a bit impaired, you know. Yeah.
Yep. So, but you could tell that he was a very genuine person, you know, that kind of thing, you know, just going through a lot of stuff, you know. So, and not an asshole. Everyone, literally, somebody posted something. Everybody seems to have a picture with him, except me. Like every normal person. Found him somewhere and took a picture with him, you know. So
that's the thing. He's a man of the people.
Yeah, some girl said he was the reason. DMX was the reason why she forgave her father.
Yeah,
for you know, like so many people have those kinds of stories. You know, even another awesome guy that I really loved. He rests in peace as well. Nipsey Hussle. Nipsey Hussle met DMX at a very early stage in his career. Right, and again, it was all support. It was all love for the younger chap, so to speak. Right, that was about to come into industry. So many people have those kinds of had those kinds of experiences with him. It just speaks to how genuine he was at heart as a person, despite his struggles and human flaws, right? So, I mean, and what's also crazy is no one's actually. It's like we've all forgotten that DMX was also an absolute rock star in the box office.
Yep.
Oh yeah.
Right.
Albums always sold.
No, not just albums, like in movies.
Stadium.
Cradle to the Grave.
It's talking about that. I'm like, have you forgotten how badass this guy actually was? Like,
you know what's crazy is that, like, to your point, when you look back now and realize he's almost this soft, cuddly thing that everyone is like, oh my God, he's such a nice person, so great. And he was. But if you're a young kid, as Chindy said, we didn't really understand. Because now, I mean, I'll be honest, now I listen to some of the stuff that he says, and I'm like, yo, this is the most homophobic shit I ever heard in my life.
Yeah.
Exactly. Fucking uncomfortable repeating something, especially in this day and age. I'm like, yo, I can't say that. But I didn't know the permutations of those things when I was younger. And all you knew is that this was a street nigga, right? That's all you knew. And I remember my brother and I, we just got to Houston. This is 2004. We're in the airport. And we saw this dude. And we saw him with his bodyguard, who looked bigger than Shaq. I was shocked, but we saw him, and we talked to amongst ourselves. We were like, should we go up to him? We were scared. Like me and brother, we were scared. And the thing is, we didn't go because like we're like, what's gonna happen? We don't, it's just irrational. But when I look back at the stories of people who talk about him as just this regular guy, I'm even more annoyed because it's like he was actually probably just gonna be so chill. Like, and I was
taking a picture with you guys, and you have it till today, right? Yeah.
Exactly.
No, he was the guy. He was the man for sure.
Rest in peace to him, man. Rest in peace to him.
Yeah.
Obviously, Prince Philip. I don't mean to sound insensitive, but okay, rest in peace.
No, rest in peace. It's cool.
Rest in peace as well. Yeah.
The monarchy needs to calm down, but sure, rest in peace. It's all good.
Brady, you seem really spirited about this topic. Let's unpack it a bit. What are your thoughts around the British monarchy?
I mean, really quickly, right? The whole idea of the monarchy is racist. Like this is the whole point. The whole point is that they were propped up for decades and even centuries by conquests of other people. That's why it was Great Britain. That's what it is. Even the United Kingdom, if you think about it, the countries that make up United Kingdom are not there by choice. They were
They
never
didn't
there
want to
by
be there.
choice.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
they were there because they lost wars.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah,
so
yeah.
this whole entire monarchy, and they were actually war leaders right back in the day, has been
Mm-hmm.
propped up by subjugation of other people.
Yeah,
So I have no, even look at this bloody Commonwealth, which I wish was disbanded.
yeah.
Like
That
it's
one's a big
it's
joke, actually.
it's a joke
Yeah,
because it's just us
yeah,
saying we're part of this group of former slaves. In
Also,
yeah,
reality,
yeah,
is what it
yeah,
exactly,
is.
exactly,
And how
exactly.
are you happy with that?
yeah,
For me personally, I notice that it's a generational thing. More
yeah,
of our parents' generation,
yeah.
so, not that they support, but they're okay with this.
Oh
Mhm.
And
yeah,
I'm just plain nuts
yeah,
because of all that stuff
yeah.
going on.
You know what's so crazy? Like, so Commonwealth is we, Britain, will
Mhm.
sit as administrators for you all to bring your wealth for
More
us to
to
share.
us,
Hmm.
Yeah,
exactly,
yeah.
exactly,
That's what it is.
exactly.
It's your wealth
Yep.
is Commonwealth for us. Our wealth
Hmm.
is not
Yeah.
Commonwealth for you guys, right?
Hmm.
Yeah.
So yeah, I wholeheartedly agree. But speaking of our parents' generation and how they relate to all of this, you know, a guy that one of my favorite. If you guys have noticed, like I'm a big music fan.
Mm.
I even threaten IJ every time that maybe I'll switch into the music industry because no, like if I wasn't doing what I'm doing now, I probably would have been an A&R in the music industry.
I was
Like
about to say
that's yeah,
it
yeah,
wouldn't
yeah.
be a
Hmm.
bad, it wouldn't be a bad, it wouldn't be a bad like career
Same
path.
principles apply.
Yeah, yeah.
I think.
So I'm in love with music. Um, the journey of an artist to me is the journey that everybody should study. Like, what does
Mhm.
it take to go from a guy singing, recording music in your cupboard, you know,
Mhm.
Hmm.
tiny ass space to actually eventually becoming a superstar around the world. Like these guys actually go through hell. Like people don't understand what it takes to break an artist and like
Yeah.
how long these guys have to grind for, you know.
Yeah.
Failure after failure after failure after failure. You release a video on YouTube, you get 10 views, and you're still somehow supposed to go back in the studio and record another song. Like, you
Hmm.
know, it's just great, 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 great all the way.
Unless
So
you're Lil
Consistency.
Nas X, but we'll leave that one alone.
Consistency.
yeah, no, once in a while you have those, right? You have those, but for the most part, like this is the journey. This is the journey of many artists. So I'm just a fan of that process first off, and then
Hmm.
the art itself. Even in Nigeria and the rest of Africa, what's coming out of Africa in terms of like Afrobeat and Afro genre music is
Hmm.
just absolutely insane,
Hmm.
right? The production quality is just absolutely insane. So I'm a big fan of music. So speaking on how we'll see all of these things going into the future. Um, I think music is going to continue to play a very big role in how culture gets disseminated.
Hmm.
I remember when we first came to Canada for university, we'll go to clubs and we'll be begging the DJ, like literally begging the DJ to play
Nigerian music.
a Two-Face song.
Mm.
Yep.
Like
Yep.
it'll be like
Play,
we'll buy
play
you,
enter the
we'll buy,
place.
yeah, you know. And now it's the
Yep.
complete opposite. So
Yeah.
it's pretty cool
We
to see.
went from begging then to having our own people being DJs
Yeah,
to
yeah,
having then everything started to rise. Even back then, I remember like there was a time when it was beginning to heat up. How Caribana started witnessing Nigerian people going to that and playing their music as part of
yeah, yeah,
Nigerian music.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
And
yeah.
then it started to rise and rise and rise. So honestly, again, you don't know. I definitely don't think I can. I don't see how I can get into it. There's different industries that I'm very, very interested in. Music, I
Yeah,
don't know how I'll
yeah,
get into it.
yeah,
Football agency, I need to be
yeah.
Minerola out here. Honestly,
Yeah.
I, honestly,
Wow.
I think that's the maddest industry. It's like you can have one prize egg, but then you always have little guys over there, or you can just be Minerola with everybody that's talented.
Fam, why do you
And that's
think I'm
Yeah.
playing football with PJ every day and taking videos? I'm going to do that Neymar, Lionel Messi
Father's son
father thing with
arrangement.
him, bro.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
or even I mean, I'm just thinking like, how did someone like Raiola begin his move into that? Like, what happened to him?
Fam,
What did he? You know what I'm saying? Like,
exactly what Chike said. Exactly what Chike said he did. Because like I read this guy's story. Like he was like an accountant or something. He was,
accountant. That's what always
he
start
was
from
very
there.
white
Money
collar.
management.
He was
Yep.
very white collar, like, and he just saw these low level, like he started low level, right? Like low level, I think Italian players, and I was like, you know what? I can organize your life. It's basically what it was.
Yeah,
And then from there, he worked his way up. It's the same thing as what Chike said to start his business. You're like, I can do that, you know, and like, let me build these relationships and let me twist people. And, you know, he's Italian. He figures out the mafia angle. It's all good.
It starts with one. That's what that's really what it comes down to, no matter what industry it is. I think the rules for building something are very universal. No matter what it is you're building, it's the same building blocks, the same foundational principles, you know. So it's pretty exciting. But Chindi, yeah, you should do it if you're thinking about it.
See, look, I'm thinking about it. I like I said, the business I'm trying to do, my first step has started. I think I want to see how it grows. You know, everything, even down to this podcast. You know, me and Bernie, we do it because we love it, but we also want it to grow and reach more people. So. You know, we continue to do it regardless of what's going on. And every week we have to put something out. We love it, want to persevere. We know and hope that it will keep growing as the years go on. You know, I saw how Under the Coach started and where it is now, and it's still growing. Just keep going. So I guess the message we're going to leave everyone with is, you know, if you have a goal or whatever, or something you want to get into, just go for it. You know, and persevere. If you really are passionate about it, just try. See what the results are and keep going, and usually it'll succeed at some point. So
no, I was actually I'm very happy you brought this up, because I was actually going to, you know, salute you guys on this. It's one thing to get started, it's another thing to keep going, right? And so I salute you guys for this, for starting and just staying with the consistency, you know, dropping content. It's early days, but how I like to look at these things is I like to put like a 5 to 10 year window, you know, out into the future before you can even come up for air to take stock, right? So whatever you're doing the next 5 to 10 years, I mean, it really doesn't matter whatever results you're seeing or setbacks you're seeing. It's just part of the game. You know, when you come up for air after swimming for this long, then you take stock of where you're at, and hopefully we'll all have good things to celebrate at that time, right? So well done, guys.
Totally right. I like that. That time span you just gave is exactly what happened with us Under the Cosh. And I tell, you know, anyone who's going to business or asks me anything, I'm like, listen, find something that you like, or whatever your inner drive is, like yours, because that's the only thing that'll keep you going. When you're not seeing the numbers that you want, find that thing, do it because you love it, or because it's your main passion and motivator. You will see the results. Believe me, it never fails. But Chike, we gotta run. Thank you, man, for joining.
Thank you so much.
I like these episodes, you know, where like I honestly felt we could talk for hours. The rest of it, like, you know, and we're gonna have to bring you back, because we're gonna bring you back for sure.
Next one we do it over whiskey, so we can talk for 5 hours.
Exactly.
Yes.
It's always good to leave. We like to impart everyone with something. So we hope you guys really enjoyed this. You know, this is why we wanted to have him here, and we'll obviously have him in the future. Obviously, to learn more. Maybe we'll also have one we focus on specific topics if he's willing to give some kind of masterclass talk. You know, through our podcast. You know, so we can get people to understand, you know, different things about entrepreneurship and, you know, how they can go about it. But we really thank you for coming.
Definitely. Thank you, boys. Thank you. I appreciate it. It's an honor. Thanks for having me.
All right. Thank you so much.
Welcome to the Talk Shop.